Hello, everybody. You're listening to the Big Chill Podcast. This is episode 880, World Cup Quarterfinal Preview. Hello, Big Chillians, and welcome back to the Big Chill Podcast. I'm Frank, joined as with Eddie. Eddie, how's it going?
Yeah, things are going pretty well. How are you?
Not too bad. Out in Phoenix, we talked a few episodes ago about the Paris weather. I have not been exposed to major heat since I moved out of Arizona, and it was 115 degrees yesterday. The 10-minute walk from the one building I had to go to the other was pretty insane. I forgot how hot 110 is.
Yeah, I mean, I can visualize. But again, as long as you have air conditioning, I don't mind being outside for 10 minutes in awful heat if I know that where I'm then going to has air conditioning and where I left also had air conditioning. That's okay. And to me, the big thing is just when you're sleeping. As long as I can guarantee a reasonable temperature to sleep in, then the day I can survive.
Well, you can do that with an air conditioner. As long as you don't put the hose back into your room.
Yes. Hasn't been on as much over the last few days, although the heat wave is about to hit us again. It's starting to get warmer.
Coming back.
Although I'm off to London this weekend, so I'll be in a hotel. So hopefully the air conditioning in the hotel will work well. And then next week I'm escaping the heat wave by heading to Texas. So see how.
I'm sure there'll be one there.
Yeah, there better be. Otherwise, we got major issues. And we often speak about the Duke of Curse. Maybe I should hold myself slightly responsible as we kind of get onto a bit of the World Cup talk, I guess. But obviously, I'm going to be in Texas. I fly out the day after the semifinal, but I will be there for the final. And a guy I went to high school with is on the board of the Egyptian FA. So he's at all of the World Cup games.
That's very random.
Yeah, it is. And I only really noticed that was part of his job because he started posting like Instagram stories and it was like him next to Infantino and stuff. So, and I messaged former co-host Sam when Egypt were 2-0 up. And I said, I might send this guy a message if it's going to be England, Egypt in a semifinal. I may send this guy a message and see if he could swing an extra semifinal World Cup ticket for me. And then maybe I look into sorting out changing my flight. Although obviously that didn't come to pass because that was quickly 2-1 whilst that conversation was being, then 2-2 and then 3-2 before the conversation even finished. And on top of it too, Trump's decided to restart the stuff in Iran. So the oil prices have skyrocketed. So I'm sure changing my ticket would have probably been too expensive anyway.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. Wow, that is a little bit of a curse there. Yeah, for sure.
Look, I don't think Argentina pulling off a comeback. I'm surprised that I'm surprised that they won 3-2 in the 90 minutes. I'm not that surprised. I'm not that surprised when I was saying that with like 20 minutes to go that they were able to get back to 2-2. I didn't think it was a foregone conclusion.
Belgium did it in like 5 minutes.
Yes, exactly.
Against Senegal.
But yeah, should we kick things off then with starting some of those last 16 ties that we didn't have the chance to speak about since our last recording? Which I guess in chronological order, the first one would have been Spain-Portugal.
Yes. I think so, right?
Which in the end, I'll say, I think was closer in a lot of ways than I thought it was going to be because I thought Spain would control that. And in the end, it was a late winner. I mean, Spain had a couple of really good chances, especially in the first half to take the lead. But Portugal really held their own and had some chances as well. And heartbreaking for them to get that close to extra time and just sort of defensively fall asleep in injury time. Seemingly, Ronaldo has retired from international football. I don't fully know if I believe it. That if he's still kicking around 4 years from now or even 2 years from now for another Euros, And I think really that's the only big thing to kind of unpack from that performance, which was that, we've discussed Ronaldo quite a bit over the course of this, and you and I maybe disagree slightly in terms of how some elements of his personality should be interpreted. But his quote of before Cristiano, Portugal hadn't won a single title,
I'm
and
glad
then
you're bringing it up and not me.
not a great look. Like, not a great look. He's played with some
Ma-
immensely talented players throughout his career. So,
Maybe it's just English is a second language kind of thing. Maybe he meant to say before I was here.
yeah.
Maybe he meant to
Yeah.
say, I think we've done well as a team since I've been a part of it, and I'm happy about our team's performance. I think that's what it meant. And it came out that said, me, Cristiano, I run Portugal team.
It's a shame because I can understand a bit of what he's saying because the questions were being framed were a little like, is your international career a slight failure because you never won a World Cup? And I think it's fair for him to say, hey, the period in which I've played for Portugal has
Yeah.
been the most successful in their history. We won a Euros. He's saying 3 titles. I'm not sure if I'm really going to throw the Nations League in there as being a massive achievement. It didn't even exist, until midway through his career or so like that one might be a bit of a stretch, but to say winning the Euros was a big deal. And I'm also kind of okay with him saying he's wrong, but I get what he's saying that winning the Euros is basically as big of a deal as winning the World Cup. Because, yeah, it's almost as challenging in terms of the quality of opposition, but no, it's not as big of a deal. I'm fine with him making those points when someone asks him, was it a failure? But he should still speak collectively. He came through, the young Cristiano Ronaldo came into a Portugal team that was packed full of some of the greatest players in the world at
Yeah.
that time. Throughout his career, he's mostly played in quite talented teams. It's never been like just Cristiano Ronaldo. There's been, a handful of players. Sure, they're not strength and depth. They're not the best team in Europe or the best team in the world. So them winning the Euros was undoubtedly a surprise. But they've got a huge amount of talent within that team at all
Are we
times.
sure it was
Eh,
before Ronaldo came, or was it before Bruno Fernandes came?
yeah,
Because ever
yeah.
since
There's going
Bruno
to be a
Fernandes has been on the team, then they've started winning.
yeah. And that was the summer of Renato Sanchez, who our friend Tim became briefly fascinated and obsessed with. He hasn't mentioned Renato Sanchez, I think, since that tournament, but whose career kind of petered out and I think ended up with him going to Swansea for a while. But, I hope he kind of hangs around. It would be cool if he gets to 7 World Cups. That's like, even if he's on a Zimmer frame at that stage, just get him out there.
Well, but I still think the issue is, right, that his vision of what he would do at the World Cup versus realistically his role if he were to make it to another World Cup is very different. He's not going to be this in the starting 11 at age 45 in the next World Cup. Like he'd be a great sub, but I honestly don't know. And maybe I'm completely wrong. I mean, like we've said, he kind of gets a bad rap about not being a team player, but then when you watched him on the sidelines, he was very supportive. Maybe he's fine being a sub. I personally just don't buy that. I don't think he'd be okay with being a sub that comes in 2 matches in the World Cup.
I mean, he would play every match, right? Like if he'd been a substitute for Portugal, he would have played in every match. And the best version of Portugal this tournament would have probably involved him being a substitute. And we actually spoke about that pre-tournament that was going to be the issue. Was the limiting factor going to be Ronaldo for them? And their best team doesn't include him. And yeah, I think we know he doesn't really accept that because that's in part why he threw his toys out of the pram at Manchester United, where that was the vision for him, was to be this super sub. And he doesn't like that. He wants to be the center of attention. Maybe when he's 45, maybe he'll mature a bit and will accept the fact that he needs to be a bit more of a role player. I also think that's like, I respect Tuchel. Tuchel's, really spoken about in this World Cup, the fact that all 26 players are playing a part and that they all have a role to play, and the way he substitutes and the way he brings players on and the sort of creating that idea. Eddie Jones famously did that with the England rugby team. He shifted that mentality. He stopped calling people substitutes and he called them like closers and finishers. So the idea was that your role was just as important as someone starting. I know it's easy to laugh
That's
at and
great.
it sounds,
What a great spin that is. I love that.
but
I'm gonna start telling the players on my team that when they sit the bench half the day and be like, no, you're good. You're a supporter. That's what we need right now. That's your best
oh,
role.
okay, that's different. I didn't say he didn't call them supporters. I think there is strong arguments to be made that in a lot of sports. I mean, you're talking about playing hockey, and those are clear lines, and you're going to have your best players out there in the biggest moments. Like you're not going to start overtime with your third line unless they were just because people were so gassed. It was the only thing that made sense. But in a sport where you make substitutions that are done, I think it makes sense to create a mentality within a team that we have our roles and that your role, whilst it doesn't include starting the game, may be just as important as the player who does. And that
Yeah.
we want to get ourselves in a position with 30 minutes to go where you can come on and change the game. That's a positive mindset to have. In the same way as baseball, like does a closing pitcher really think that he's less significant than a starting pitcher? I bet you most closing pitchers in the MLB would say they're more important. Like they have way more ego. They get their little big entrance thing that they do and everyone loses their
Yeah.
mind and they play the trumpets and flash the lights for a guy to throw possibly only 3 pitches. Like I think that's healthy, and maybe no one's taken Ronaldo aside and said, he would probably tell you that it's stupid, but really sat him down and said, like, "We need you to be the closer here. We need you in the final 20 minutes of a close game to come on and score
You
that goal."
get your own intro song and everything. We'll give it to you. When you get
Yeah,
subbed on,
he could
we'll play an
he could
intro
sue
song.
he could sue his way onto the pitch as he gets substituted
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, he could have like a full cloak on. He can like unveil himself. That would be kind of funny. Yeah. And actually I have to take it back. Bruno Fernandes is not the reason. His international debut for Portugal is 2017, right after they won
So
the Euros. So if anything, he is not part of it. Unfortunately.
yeah. But in the end too, like as we discussed, I mean, Spain, I think we're deserving winners on the night, and they do seem to be finding their form a bit more as the tournament goes on, and
Kind of.
looks as if I think that I think they were good against Portugal. They created some good opportunities. It's easy to dismiss it as just being Portugal, but that is a Portugal team coming into this World Cup. The talk was Portugal have the best midfield in the world. Like every talking head article, everything was this is the best midfield in the world. And, you know, Spain mostly negated that, dominated possession, should have scored a few more goals. I mean, they had the one-on-one, that they somehow missed midway sort of through the first half. I think they look good. And it looks as if we're headed towards a France-Spain semifinal. That will be an interesting test for both of them.
How has Yamal looked to you think?
I said, I think after their first match that I felt like he was trying too hard, and I still feel that way. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
watching a player who thinks that this is his World Cup to star in, and that rather than just doing the things that could make him really useful to Spain, he is often trying to do that little bit extra to sort of score the fantastic goal, be too involved in a play. And that's what worries me a little bit is you can sense, I mean, he's so young. He has so many
Yeah.
more World Cups to take part in, and there's almost a desperation here that he needs to sort of announce himself onto the world stage by being the story of the World Cup.
Yeah.
And I think that ship's already sailed because a number of other players have probably taken that mantle, regardless of what happens in the last few days. But he just needs to contribute. They have such a sort of team-focused approach to attacking and their interplay, and he just needs to do a better job of sort of staying within that.
Yeah, and you can definitely see those moments. I mean, when you watch him, when he's not trying to do that, like I think when he thinks he has like this slight opportunity, he's taking it. I think a little more than he should instead of just kind of playing the game. But when he doesn't, I think he's great. You know what I mean? Like I think someone needs to kind of sit him down and kind of almost say what you say is in the sense of like we don't need you to have like a highlight reel right now. Just we need our team. We need Spain to win here. Like keep just playing as a team, keep playing together because he does make a lot of nice plays and sets up a lot of nice opportunities. But it's just every once in a while he wants to try and do it himself, and it's at least so far what I've seen, it's just kind of almost never worked. And half the time he ends up kind of like turning it over, losing possession. So it just kind of to settle, I think, a little bit.
Yeah. And
And it's going to
and
be tough now, right? Like you're not going to be able to have like a highlight reel game now in these upcoming matches. You're not playing, an opponent that you can run off 2, 3 goals pretty easily against.
well, maybe Belgium. If we could, and that's a good way for us to transition that into Belgium ending this U.S. dream run as it's somehow being framed through to the last 16. I take back everything I said about the U.S. should be happier that they were playing Belgium and not Senegal because honestly, that was the best performance I've seen from Belgium in like 8 years. They started that
Yeah.
game. They made the controversial decisions of not starting De Bruyne and not starting Doku. That was
I,
great
I still don't know
managed.
why.
I think he picked a team that he thought was the best for beating what the US had to offer, and they dominated. I mean, they dominated possession. They looked fast. If you
Yeah.
compare it to how they looked in the early stages against Senegal, where they looked lethargic and just uh, couldn't keep up with it. I mean, they never gave the US a hope. It was incredibly unfair on Belgium that deflected free kick made it 1-1. That lasted for
Yeah.
whatever it was, 31 seconds. And then it was business as usual, and the US never got a sniff again. I mean, it was
Yeah.
probably the most dominant performance from any team in this World Cup. And I don't mean that to just enrage US, but even thinking of like Germany, Curacao, I think Curacao were more in that game when it
I
was
don't know about
1-1.
that.
We were together watching that game. There was the first. I mean, if Germany only scored in the latter stages to kind of take control of the first half. I think the first 20 to 25 minutes of Germany Curacao was more competitive than at any stage in the US Belgium match. It could have been 1-0
Yeah.
Belgium in that game 90 seconds into it. When they
Yeah.
forced a good save from the corner and then just never looked back.
Yeah. Yeah. When the US scored to equalize and everyone was kind of, like, "Oh, Tillman, he's clinical from that free kick." And it's like, "Is he?" He just ripped it off a Belgian player's head. Like, I couldn't
Well,
call
I
that
don't. I
clinical.
think ripping it off someone's head is even being generous.
He
I think he scored 2 free
the
kicks.
Belgium
The Bosnian one was awful goalkeeping, and then the second one against Belgium. I mean, he's not rip. He didn't. It's not like the Belgian player couldn't. The Belgian player is just trying to
Yeah.
flick it over the crossbar
Yeah.
and out for a corner, and just happens to
Put it in.
perfectly wrong foot his own goalkeeper. I mean, and I felt sorry for that because that he had come on for Onana. And that's the big miss for Belgium is Onana is, not gonna be taking part in the remainder of this World Cup. That's a big blow for them. And you sort of felt bad that Belgium had been dominant. Onana goes off injured. The substitute who comes on then deflects the kind of equalizing goal in, and I worried for him that was gonna be where Belgium unraveled. And then it was so quickly 2-1, and then they were just right back to being, fully in charge.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was super dominant and it was the after match comments ran the spectrum for the US. It's and ultimately I think this is what angers me the most about a lot of people who support the US is like one their expectations, which we've talked about numerous times, right? Like they do not have the level to win a World Cup. That should not be the end point. That should not be what you're rooting for. You're rooting for a team to go in, get to the knockout stages, and then make an upset, go a few rounds deep. That would be great. So the fact then that this was like a complete failure, and this was awful, was a complete failure, that is very annoying. The second part that is kind of frustrating is then how quickly they turn on their players. One match ago, it was we've got some of the best talent in the world. We've got this guy, he's phenomenal. We got Balogun, one of the most underrated strikers, blah, blah, blah. And then the next match, it's like, these guys are fucking chumps. They're terrible. I would never want to support these fucking losers. They don't hustle. They don't play. They disappoint me. They're pathetic. It's like the 180. Like, come on. If you want to support a team, you can't just instantly just turn on every player on the team. Like, did they have a good match? No. Did they play well? No. But were they more just overmatched? Yeah, that's what happened. Like, they didn't go out there and choose to just not play. They were overmatched.
Yeah, I think they played really badly. I mean, I think the difference in the what appeared to be the gulf in quality between the two teams on the day was more significant than the gulf in quality probably is. Now, I mean, look, it's the first time that the U.S. over the course of this tournament played a significant European side. Their record, even under Pochettino, I mean, they lost, 5-1 to Belgium when they played each other a year ago. It's not as if, and they lost 4-0 to Switzerland not that long ago. I mean, when they've played stiffer European opposition, they've tended to come up short. So it's not that surprising. Yeah, on the balance of what we saw from Belgium so far in this World Cup and what we'd seen from the US so far this World Cup, I thought Belgium were going to win. I don't think Belgium should have been kind of underdogs, but at the same time, I don't think they should have been overwhelming favorites either.
I mean, 3 months ago, they played them with their basic starting 11 and lost to Belgium 5-2. Like, I don't
5-2.
know where, like,
Yeah.
like, it's one of the, like, that wasn't that long ago. And it wasn't like it was the backups. They were all in there.
Yeah, like, but here's the thing is, I think and what I hate is that then we got the usual American coping mechanism, which is if our best athletes played this, we would win it. And I hate that conversation. It's so stupid. I mean, we've discussed it previously on the podcast. It's so dumb because most of your best athletes actually wouldn't be great footballers because they don't have the physique. Like, yes, there's a handful of them. If you want to say Tyreek Hill would probably be decent. He's kind of Doku-esque, or, a handful of other, like some point guards in the NBA who probably would have been. But you're assuming that they're good with their feet, which there's no reason to just guarantee that. And, like LeBron James would not be a useful footballer. There's a reason why people with his body type, they exist elsewhere. This perception of that the US is the only sort of breeding point for people with those types of physiques. If LeBron James grew up in England, he'd probably just be playing rugby. That's probably the more likely outcome for him if he'd been really good at sports. There's not a huge number of 6'8", 6'9", 6'10" people who become professional footballers for a reason. Maybe he's a goalkeeper. Maybe he's that.
I mean, but I agree with you that gets really annoying, and I don't think there's just a direct translate that someone is athletic, that they can be athletic in any sport. Like, yeah, there is some truth to that, but this is a very different type of athleticism. I'll tell you right now, like, I consider myself very athletic for like an average person. Like, I think I'm very athletic. I can pick up most sports pretty quickly. I am terrible at football. Like, I cannot work with my feet at all. Like, it just doesn't translate to me. So because you're athletic doesn't mean, I know, like, it's fine. Like, I'm okay with it. But
the counter to that would be, had you grown up in Italy and been kicking a ball since you were 4 years old, 5 years old, you're probably better. But you might not be. You might just not have it in you to do that.
But I think regardless of that argument, like, it's also annoying because, like, but that is the case. Like, okay, the U.S. has great athletes, but they're not playing, European football. Okay, move on from that. Like it's just a frustrating argument in the sense that this is who you've got. Like, you're not going to randomly, hypothetically get these other players. This is who you have on your squad. Like, deal with it and adjust your expectations then accordingly. Like, you can't go into a World Cup being like, we're going to win. And if we had the best athletes from our country, then we would definitely win. You don't. This is who you have. This is what you're going to do. This is the best you've got. Like, that's just the way it is. Like, it's just it's just a nonsensical argument that it really gets me really quickly. Like, I just don't understand the point of even saying it.
And to be clear too, like, the rest of the world doesn't do that. Like, Great Britain doesn't lose to the US at basketball, and our takeaway isn't, Well, if some of our rugby players played basketball, we'd be way more competitive. Like France isn't saying, "Hey, actually, we're pretty close to the US at the moment," but actually only a small proportion of our very best athletes play basketball. So
Imagine their
really we
handball
should be
players played
yeah.
basketball.
Or rugby players, like a host of
Yeah.
things where you just have these like physical, specimens. You could have lots of people. There's probably some people from even, and from the football team who'd probably be pretty good
Yeah.
basketball players if they dedicated their lives to playing basketball instead. And the rest of the world doesn't do this. It's not an excuse that we come up with. And the reality is, I think every country in the world, culture aside, let's remove the cultural, because really it's the culture holding you back. But in terms of number of young people who play the sport and the infrastructure there to support them, the US is better positioned than every country. Like you can't lose to Belgium, a country. What's the population of Belgium? I mean,
Yeah, I think you're right. Proportionally, there probably are, or not proportionally, total individuals. Yeah, there are probably more total young Americans playing soccer than there are young Belgium players playing
that
football.
wouldn't even be close.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Population of Belgium's nearly 12 million people.
yeah.
I am sure if we just looked at the statistics right now
And
of how many.
What's the US currently? Because I would say, because I can give you the percentage. I would think growing up, it's probably close to, I'll be very conservative. I'll say 30% of all kids are playing soccer growing up. That's one out of every
So
three.
US Youth Soccer, which is the organization of competitive uh, associations across the country, you have currently 2.5 million players registered in the US. So that is a third of the population of Belgium, all ages, is under 18 in the United States playing soccer, playing football. If out of that you can't find 26 of them who can compete, like the Belgian conversion rate of talent to international quality players has to be so much better. And ultimately, and yes, the people listening to this will say some of those go on to play other sports at the highest level. For sure they do. But
Yeah,
the reality is you still have everything in place to be good. The culture you don't have, and you may never have, because you can't be great at all sports and you can't have a culture that supports all
yeah,
sports. It just doesn't work that way. And the other point is part of the thing holding you back is the reaction you then have to these losses, because you can't, as a country, and I know I've said this previously, America is not a country that can deal with being anything than the very best in all things that you do. It's the mentality. You're number one, you're number one, you're number one.
yeah,
You're great at supporting like every sport you play in professionally, with I guess the exception probably of baseball at the moment. You are the best country at it. Even baseball, it's close. You know, I don't know if there's a huge appetite within American sports fandom and culture for accepting, we're just probably always going to be like the 16th best country in the world at this.
yeah,
And if the stars align, maybe we can get to a World Cup semifinal. But realistically, and maybe we sneak a final. Maybe we're like Croatia in 2018
yeah,
and everything comes together and we make our way to a final. But probably even when we get to the final, then we'll be up against someone who's just way, way better than us.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's definitely just an expectation thing. It's just, it angers me to see supporters just turn on players that quickly. Like, I get that they had a bad match, but bad matches happen. Like, you just don't then instantly just throw that person under the bus. Like, it's just, like it. I just hate to see that. It just angers me so much, and it just happens every time. Like, and that's the crazy part, is every time it's like the last World Cup, Pulisic was getting controversy, and then again now he's back to being the one of the best in the world, and now he's an asshole again. Like it's like a cycle every time. Like it's so unfair to the players at a point, and it must be
And look,
frustrating for
some of
them.
those players maybe contribute to it. I do think some of your players carry themselves as if, like Wilson McKennie and stuff, makes a big deal, plays for Juventus, reminds everyone at all opportunities. Okay, big deal. You're a fullback for the 20th best club in Europe. There's some pretty average players in that same, and I'm not trying to single him out to shit on him, but yeah, like Pulisic, you know, it's very satisfying from a European perspective because we had to listen to Americans like that list that we went through pre-World Cup of the players who would have the biggest impact. Now you can tell me that Balogun in the end is gonna be one of the players we will most remember this World Cup for, not only
Yeah.
because he scored a few goals, but then also had the controversy of the red card. He's the only American who 50 years from now, when I think back on this World Cup, will really come to mind. The rest of them, not so much. But, like, yes, I think the players themselves could temper expectations slightly in terms of how they speak about themselves. Like, and I get it, it's a tough thing because you're a professional athlete, so you need to have a lot of ego, you need to have a lot of confidence. I would be a little disheartened if I listened to a player playing for my team say, "Well, I don't think I'm that great." That would worry me slightly. But at the same time, I think the conversation does have to shift to, like, wow, we've really talked up this team because we have 5 players playing at major European clubs, and every player starting for Belgium plays at a major European club. There's a vast difference there in terms of strength and depth and even the quality of the very best players available to them. And I will say, and I know this has been speculated, I'm not sure. I think the US team was probably hurt by the Balogun stuff. Like, I think maybe that threw them off more. I think it lit a fire under Belgium in terms of them feeling as if they'd been slightly hard done by, that they had prepared for one US team and now rules were being changed to allow a US player to take part. And I think for the US, maybe the controversy and the discussion surrounding that was more of a distraction than it was a benefit to have Balogun involved. So that probably hurt them. And you could tell by Belgium. I mean, not only with the Lukaku Trump dance celebration, like waving goodbye after they did that, the Belgian uh, troll job on their social media with the picture of Lukaku celebrating and the caption of "overturn this."
Yeah.
There's you probably in the end, it probably hurt America more than it helped them.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, that constantly having to talk about that and get questions about that, I'm sure that just never works well.
Yeah. And look, if I was Balogun's backup too, I would have been a bit peeved. I felt sorry. I know in hindsight, like those 2 American players who got thrown onto the pitch with like 15 seconds to go. And I know in the future, maybe you tell yourself, I think one of them hadn't played a second in the World Cup up until now, and maybe that might be the only time you step onto the pitch in a World Cup. So maybe in 20 years from now, you'll be happy to be able to tell people, yeah, I played in a World Cup. I think I would have said no if Pochettino had turned around to me 4-1 down with 15 seconds to go of, "Do you wanna walk onto the pitch?" And you kinda need to look miserable as you're getting subbed on, like, that's the role you have to play is you need to look frustrated, there's no chance of the turnaround, but yeah, like, good Belgian performance. I don't think it tremendously shifts my expectations for them moving forward, but they definitely looked pretty good. Even Lukaku had looked slightly mobile in when
Yeah,
he was on the pitch.
yeah. Some of the other the American, pundits and whatever you wanna call them, uh, agitators, a lot of times it is just, I think, just to get clicks and things like that. Some of the things that they say just crack me up with how dumb they are. The one that cracked me up was like, I was like, "Christian Pulisic, he is really good. He's so great with the ball with his feet, but he's kinda small. What we need someone who has his skill, but has the size like Holland, who can dominate physically, but also have his ball skills. That's what the US needs." Like, really? I think most fucking countries would say they need someone like that. Like, yeah, give
More to the
me
point.
someone with elite ball skills that's 6'6". Yeah, great.
Yeah. More to the point, it just doesn't exist.
Yeah,
It's like he'd be the first one ever.
like
Whoever that person is, they'd be the first one to have ever come around. So, yeah,
do
I
you think
mean,
Croatia's like, "Nah, we're good. We don't want someone like that."
it would be
Like, yeah,
unfair. It
everybody.
would be unfair to use you. You're too good. We'll send you to play basketball. But and and look, I also think I feel sorry for those players. We spoke last episode. it had turned the US into the bad guys. It's about to happen to Argentina too. I don't think Argentina care one bit is the biggest difference. They will be the heels of this World Cup in the way that the US were not ready to be, but everybody wanted you to lose because of the feeling that you were getting an unfair level of treatment. Uh, and, that's not a great position to be in as a player. So, hopefully I hope the US learns from this. They won't. We'll go into the next World Cup. You will qualify super easily because you mostly play nations that have no chance of being competitive on the international stage. And we will go into the next World Cup with having to hear that this time will be different and that
Oh,
no,
it's already
these
started.
players.
It's
Yeah,
like now
I'm
it's like, well, look, they're all still really young and you have this core. Now they're going to have 4 more years where they get to mature and be with each other. Like imagine this same team but 4 years later. Like I've
which
already heard it.
which that there's elements within that are fair. Like this is a good young team. They're at the next World Cup, they won't be an easy out is basically the way to think of them. You're on a par with a handful of the smaller European nations, a couple of the smaller South American nations. That's the level that US is going to be at for the foreseeable future, unless something radically changes. And that's okay. And I'm also, again, I'm not trying to going into games thinking that you can win 100% fine. That's how every supporter
Yeah.
should feel. So I'm not trying to tell people, go, but you should be able to go into a World Cup saying, nah, probably not this time, unless something crazy happens. But if we get to the quarterfinals, that would have been a good outing. And if prior to the quarterfinals we lose to one of the big nations, then that's okay too. But if it's like, wait, if next World Cup is we got knocked out in the last 32 by Germany, this is unacceptable. We've taken a step backwards. It's like,
Yeah.
no, that's not how it works.
Eddie, you know what? Maybe what they're missing is your mentality that you should go into matches, wanting to win, but you might not be the better team. Maybe that's the part they're missing. They're missing that like the sometimes you're just not the better team mentality. Like you can go in and win a match and not be the better team, but more
Uh,
often than not, you're not going to go into a match being the better team, and you have to be able to accept that.
Are you advocating that I should be the US sports psychologist? Because I'm willing to fill that role if they need it. I
No,
think I would
you should
excel.
be the U.S. supporters psychologist.
Ah, well, they can listen to the podcast. Speaking of which, actually, we've got a bunch of new listeners during the World Cup for obvious reasons. We're talking about topics and countries that maybe normally wouldn't be that interested in some of the things that we talk about. If you're a new listener, obviously, welcome. And if you're a new listener, please subscribe, leave a review. Always helpful, especially if you're on Spotify. Leaving us a review, even a bad one, is better than no review. So I thought I'd ask you, because this month so far in July, we're only 8 days in, record number of countries listening to this podcast. Can you take a guess at how many countries we've had listeners from so far in July?
65.
Oh, you're way off. 105 countries have listened to this
Wow.
podcast so far.
Okay.
Yes.
Nice.
So I won't run through saying welcome in all of the relevant languages because it would take us too long.
Any
But
from Cape Verde?
I don't think so. I'll
Damn.
bring up the stats right now. I don't think so. I think we did cover most of the World Cup nations, but they were not on the list. Maybe we weren't positive enough about their achievements. Doesn't look like it. No Cape Verde listeners. But hello to our one listener in Sierra Leone. you're, you're listening. One listener in the Seychelles, one listener in the Maldives. Those are nice places to be listening to the podcast. Yeah. Anyway, back on track. And then the final matches from the last 16. Yesterday, Argentina pulled off, we already alluded to it, but that comeback against Egypt 2-0 down. A lot of controversy within that match. I think that
So
the major talking, yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. No, finish up because I think that's
Well,
what
the
we're
major
gonna
talking
discuss.
points, Egypt had a second goal, which was disallowed. They then later took a 2-0 lead. And I feel like some of the conversation is glossing over elements of that because It's, well, they went up 2-0 up anyway, and they still blew it, so it doesn't really matter that they had this goal disallowed. And then just the number of fouls, free kicks, no cards that are being awarded to Argentina over the course of matches, it does feel like they're getting somewhat favorable refereeing decisions. And what's more, not being helped than the clips of Infantino sitting in the stands, and when Egypt scored, he looks unhappy. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. The Egyptians sort of erupt next to him, and he looks decidedly unhappy. And then on top of it, his quotes post-match, which is he said he suffered along with the Argentina supporters through that match. Not a great look for someone who's supposed to basically remain neutral. I mean, I think, and maybe if he wants to say something like, "Oh, I suffered a bit with the Egyptian supporters for them to blow that lead," I think you can maybe be a neutral who leans towards the loser. I think you can get away with that, but you can't be a neutral who leans towards the eventual winner.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was gonna say on social media, there's a lot of controversy comparing the foul and no foul. So the Egyptian goal that was called off because they went back and saw a foul on the Argentinian player that then led to Egypt getting the ball and taking it down and scoring, versus Mo Salah in the box being challenged and being stepped on and not getting the call for the penalty. I this is kind of the this is where I think social media kind of starts to really annoy me with how clickbaity it can be, because while they do look similar when you freeze frame them, for anyone who watched the match, the Mo Salah challenge, he has already lost the ball, and the Argentinian player had already, like, touched the ball, knocked it past him, and Salah had lost it, and then in, like, the aftermath of that, he then gets stepped on by the player trying to kinda, like, almost get around him to get the ball. That's not a foul. He had lost the ball already. Just because his foot is on the other guy's foot doesn't make it a foul. Like, so I but, like, when you stop it and show it just in one clip and you compare it side by side with the other one, it's like, "How is this one called and that one not?" It gets super annoying, I think.
Yeah. So the Salah one kind of comes back to, like, I don't really think it was a foul, but it certainly wasn't a penalty because, as we discussed last episode with the Harry Kane incident, the threshold for penalties is significantly higher. And that's where the VAR intervention in this gets dumb, because you then suddenly, they're not going to disallow a goal and award a penalty. Like, that's going to be too much. So, that's a bit silly. The closest comparison is the goal that Argentina's opening goal of the World Cup against Austria, where they undoubtedly foul an Austrian player in the build-up, get possession, break, and score. And actually, the time between foul to goal is a lot shorter and quicker than it is in the case of the Egyptian second goal. I don't think, like, was the Argentinian player fouled as Egypt won possession? 100% he is. But is VAR there to really go back and look at that, as the ball then moves 95 meters up the pitch? Is that really what we're here for? Is that what we hope the technology will exist for? I don't think so. I think it feels wrong. We don't see it happen ever, really. And as I said, we've seen other incidents in this World Cup, and it's sort of been the theme of our conversation about officiating, is it's just so much inconsistency. If they had been doing that for every goal throughout this World Cup, then fine. But then we also have to really clearly define sort of the phase of play with which you can go back. Is it a number of passes? Is it an amount of time? Is it how far the ball needs to move away from the foul? Like, something within that has to be kind of codified so that we all know, oh, if you make 4 passes, then you can't go back anymore. If 45 seconds goes by, we can't go back anymore. And with the exception to that being if there's something serious foul play takes place, if that had been an Egyptian player stamping on an Argentinian player's head, then I'm okay with going back. But if it's just a sort of a nothing foul, like if a red card isn't going to be given, then we shouldn't be going back for it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it denied Egypt a really great goal. One of
Yeah.
what would have been possibly the best goal of the World Cup so far, and instead it is where it is. And yeah, all the stats point to the fact that Argentina are getting the rub of the green in terms of the number of fouls that are being awarded against them, the frequency with which their players are being booked, how key decisions are being handled in matches. There's no doubt that Argentina is, and I worry of what a semifinal between England and Argentina could look like. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So going back to kind of your comment about like how long back for the fouls, it sounds like, and again, this is always tough because people interpret the rule book differently and whatever, but it sounds like that the rule is as long as there's no clear change in possession from the start, that it can go back as far as it needs to check for a foul. And in that play, I guess you could say that Egypt controlled it consistently the entire way. Although I would almost argue when you put it through, when you almost like nutmeg an Argentinian player, like that kind of like you still have possession, but that's kind of a unique situation. But I guess technically, as long as they held that possession the entire time, then you can go back as far as you want. Uh,
Yeah,
for as long,
but
like even if it were like 2 minutes, as long as
yeah,
they held it without any chance of the other team getting it.
yeah, because I mean that's yeah, the sort of attacking phase of play concept, but and in this instance that was pretty quick because Egypt just broke
They
and
just went,
scored, and it wasn't like
yeah,
it was whatever it was, 15 seconds. But you could have like a Barcelona-esque possession, like Spain
yeah,
could
yeah, yeah.
easily commit a foul, and it could be 3 minutes of Spain just first they play a pass to the goalkeeper, then to the right back, then to the left back, and then you could have completely for everyone on the pitch will have forgotten. And this is the problem with it is I'm sure VAR intervenes in this instance because the time between the incident and the foul is so quick that it's easy for them to think we should look at that. But had it been 3 minutes, am I really
Yeah.
trusting that the people sitting in the booth there are going like, we need to go back and look at how possession was won there? I don't have confidence in that. So the definition, I think a time element would at least be clearer. And again, I also believe the ultimate solution to how VAR is being handled, I think we need to move in the direction of challenges in an NFL style. And you can have two challenges, and if you get it right, keep the challenges forever. If you get one wrong, you're down. Like or cricket, everything. You have your challenge
Yeah.
system. And so if Argentina had wanted to go, hey, because I don't think Argentinians would have been up in arms had that goal just stood. You wouldn't have paid too much mind to it. I think it would be a much more efficient and effective way to do it, but I don't think that will ever happen. But it would at least solve some of the problems.
Quick side note, speaking of the people in the booth, the VAR people, when they show them pre-match and they're like intently staring at the screens before the match even started, like pointing, what the fuck are they doing?
Well,
Like,
in fairness, I think in the opening match they kind of looked at the screen. They looked at the camera, and I think they
I know, but I
realized
think
that
this is
was.
worse.
I think
I
the
think
looking at the
this is
camera was
worse when
worse.
they're like faking that they're like watching a play, but the match hasn't started yet. They're like, oh, look at that flag. It's getting pulled in too slowly. Should we call them down there? Like, what are they? And they're like pointing at the screen. I've seen them pointing at it.
Yeah, I
Like
don't
the
know. It's an
match hasn't
awkward
even
position.
started yet.
I think the first match where they kind of looked, it was a little bit like the start to a 90s sitcom of sort of
Yeah, it
turning to
was a little
camera
bit. Yeah, yeah.
and being there.
In like the
So I
intro,
understand
yeah.
I understand not looking is probably better, but yet they could just I don't know.
Yeah.
They got to figure it out. I don't know what I do if I'm there, but I don't. And maybe they are. Maybe they're clipping something. Maybe they tell them, "Hey, review this, and we'll film you while you do it, and then we'll use that as showing you guys." But it is a
Yeah.
bit strange.
It's the VAR in charge sitcom.
Yes.
VAR in
And then the
charge
final
of
match.
our days and our nights. And they just like turn and point.
And then the final match of the last 16 was Colombia, Switzerland, which was by far and away the worst match of the knockouts of that round of knockout matches.
I'll be honest, I didn't watch it.
You didn't miss
I
much.
came back and watched the extended highlights, and I felt not justified that I didn't watch it, but okay with the fact that I had other things going on and I was unable to watch it.
You didn't miss much. I think Colombia will be kicking themselves. They had some good opportunities to score. I mean, even right at the end of extra time, they had a golden
Yeah, saw
opportunity
that.
to take the lead. And then another poor penalty shootout with players missing the goal. I
That
guess you
one
can be
guy
a little
drilled the bar on
crossbar.
that one. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
you can feel a
drilled that
little bit hard
crossbar.
from him because he's a millimeter away from quote unquote
He
a perfect
smoked that
penalty.
thing. Yeah.
But but it's I think, and I don't want to be dismissive of any team once you get to the quarterfinal stage, but I don't think it really mattered once it made a penalty shootout. It was sort of obvious that whoever wins this is just setting themselves up to be knocked out in the next round. But, you know,
Is there a
I've said
phrase for
that.
that in football? If you hit the bar and it, like, goes in? Like, in hockey, you'd call that bar down. Like, if you hit the front bar and it drops, like, pretty much, like, straight down and in, that's, like,
No, I think,
everyone's dream is to get, like, a bar down shot.
I mean, you say like in off the woodwork. I don't think we're dorky enough to come up with little cool phrases for us to use. I think that's the upper 90. But,
Well, the other one I was
but
thinking about with the Egyptian play that we just discussed, is there a term where if a player, like, gets the ball basically, like, super deep in their own zone and just takes it the entire length of the pitch and scores? Is there a term for that? Like, in hockey, that would be, like, called coast to coast. If you went coast to coast, like, you took it basically, like, from, like, your net, went all the way down and scored.
yeah, I think you just say you went from one end of the pitch to the other, but I don't think
Ah,
we.
that's boring.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. We don't want to completely Americanize our sport and have little terms for everything that happens. But
Gotta have fun
end
with
to
it.
end, I don't know. Like, yeah,
End to end, yeah, okay.
I think you just say from one end of the pitch to the other. I think that would be
I'm sure it happens very
full length of
rarely.
the pitch. You just say something like that. You wouldn't. I don't think we have a cool little term. But yeah, that sets up the quarterfinals. So for listeners, we have France against Morocco, kicks things off tomorrow in Boston.
Great
Then on
match.
Friday, yeah, Friday is Spain against Belgium. And then on Saturday, two matches, which is being played in LA. And then two matches on Saturday. First, Norway against England in Miami. And then Argentina against Switzerland in Kansas City. So France against Morocco, rematch of the 2022 World Cup
Yeah.
semifinal in Qatar, which France won 2-0.
I think on paper, this is the best one for the quarters.
Yeah, probably.
I think the biggest chance, too, for a potential upset. I mean, it's tough to call that an upset because Morocco are good. But in terms of who's favored, France is clearly favored, and I think out of the four matches, I think this is the one that has the highest potential for me.
Yeah, I think it's the most interesting test. I think Morocco present a unique, as we kind of discussed, they're just a much better version of Paraguay, and I don't mean that to diminish Morocco. They're a well-organized, very good defensive team, but who offer a threat going forward, but who will be happy to, be not dominate possession and try and knock France off their stride. The interesting thing is only half of the teams that made the World Cup quarterfinals in 2022 have made it back to the quarterfinals this time around, with those four nations being Argentina, England, France, and Morocco. So 50% success rate. And Morocco, by making it this far, the first African nation in history to make back-to-back World Cup quarterfinals.
Nice. Yeah.
So, I mean, having said all that, I do think France will go through. Um, you know, I think Morocco will be encouraged by some of what they saw Paraguay do to them, and it certainly won't be an easy match for France, but realistically, I think it could be kind of similar to what we saw in the semifinal last time around, where ultimately France just have a little bit too much class. And again, it's a cliche of how important the first goal is, but I think any path to success in this match for Morocco, they have to score first. I can't see a scenario where they come from behind. So, that puts a lot of pressure on them here. And I think that's actually going to be a theme for all four of these quarterfinals is I think there are half the teams involved will feel as if their only realistic chance of going through is scoring the first goal. And the other half of them will think we'd like to score the first goal, but it's not the end of the world if we don't.
Yeah. Yeah, I think France will advance. France have looked very good. I mean, that Paraguay match is a little tough to analyze because they were just getting beat up on the pitch, but overall they've kind of cruised to this spot, whereas Morocco have done decently well, but I feel like they have just taken advantage of, you know, seeing Canada in the last round, which is I think a pretty easy matchup they would have liked. They beat what? Haiti and Scotland. They did beat the Netherlands, but went down to penalties. So that's kind of where I think they are. If American listeners, I think love kind of looking through lines and comparisons. Morocco drew to Brazil in the group stage, and then Norway just beat Brazil, and France beat Norway 4-1 quite handily. So if you want to kind of read some through lines there,
Yeah, but
um,
Norway rested 10 players.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, but no, that's no. I'm all for talking up France as being favorites, but we can't use a form guide of how well did they do against Norwegian B in the last. I think that's a little unfair.
But yeah, I think France will win this.
Yeah, probably. And then next up, Spain, Belgium in LA. So Spain reaching their first quarterfinals since 2010, which is when they won their first and only World Cup. And Belgium, kind of consistent quarterfinal appearances over the last handful of World Cups, but not done a good job of getting over the hump. I think key differences here are probably that for Spain, they have underperformed so far in terms of what the expectations were and from how good they would look. And expectations into the tournament would have definitely been that they would have at least been setting themselves up for a semifinal appearance against France. Belgium, I guess pre-tournament, we picked them to get to the quarterfinals with the way that draw unfolded for them. It's just we thought that they would look better in the group stages and in their match they played against Senegal. So we said going into the match against the U.S., could Belgium replicate what they showed in the final 5 minutes against Senegal against the U.S.? And they did. They copied and pasted that and applied it over 90 minutes. If Belgium can recreate the performance they have against the U.S., then they have a very good chance. But I think Spain will just dominate possession in the way that they do. They just kind of control games. And I think this will just be one round too far for Belgium.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think you said when we were discussing the Belgium-Spain that Belgium-US, that Belgium just looked quicker that match against the US, and maybe kind of altering that lineup a little bit gave them some more speed and just were attacking quicker. But Spain can neutralize that super well. I mean, that's kind of what they can get possession and keep possession and kind of neutralize any speed that Belgium have. And I think Spain will win this. This is the first time. I thought it's pretty decently crazy that this is the first time they've met in a competitive match in 17 years between the two, between Euros and World Cup. You'd think, and I guess now Nations League, you'd think they'd have met before, but they haven't played each other competitively since 2009. They had a friendly 10 years ago, but they haven't faced each other since 2009.
What was 2009?
2009 was World Cup qualification.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, and I think the Onana injury for Belgium is a huge blow. He plays such a big part in both defensively and how they transition then into an attacking phase, and he does pop up with the odd useful goal. And I think for them, there aren't a lot of, for most countries, if you're losing one of your 2 or 3 most important players, it's hard. But in particular for Belgium, with the strength of depth they have within their squad, I think the drop-off is pretty significant. And so, that I think is also going to be tough. And yeah, I mean, look, Belgium played well. The U.S. also made things kind of easy. I mean, you can point to the third Belgian and fourth Belgian goal and say that the U.S. poor player incompetence played a large part in both of those. So, maybe the scoreline slightly flattered Belgium in some ways. I mean, they won convincingly, but they weren't playing sort of free-flowing football where the goals just looked like they were never going to end. So yeah, I can't see Belgium winning this.
Do you know the last time they've beaten Spain?
I do not. Couldn't even
1986. in
Oh, wow.
in the World Cup quarterfinals. Beat them in penalties.
Well,
And
if
interestingly, during that time,
their star
never mind.
midfielder suffered an ACL injury in the round before.
Yep.
And they had a slightly overweight player past his best who keeps coming on in the late stages of matches and scoring goals. Next up, Norway against England in Miami.
Oh
This
boy.
is, I'm sure, going to be a bit billed as Holland versus Kane. I think that's the easiest way to think about it. There's a slightly tasteless pitching of this is like the Viking. This is a sort of 2,000-year-old rivalry because of Vikings invading England. It's funny how we could think about raping and pillaging as being kind of charming if it was long enough ago that it's okay. Meanwhile, I have to
Well,
apologize for everything the British Empire has done over the last 300 years. But it's an
well,
interesting one.
I also think I don't know if you've seen, but there's been a lot of. I mean, obviously, you showed the Vinicius Junior Holland AI video, but there's been a lot of really well done AI videos of like battle sequences between the two countries or nations. So the last one, I don't know if I had sent it to you or not, but it was England versus Mexico, and it was slightly racist in its depiction of both countries. And then now I just saw the England Norway one, and it's also like edging some hard stereotypes pretty strongly. Like it's like, oh man, this is like it very well done. Like it looks very realistic, but I don't know if that's kind of how we want to put real players into fake like scenes.
Yeah, I mean, I think AI mostly exists to create slightly offensive, either racist or sexist content most of the time. So there's no surprise there. But yeah, it's this is an interesting matchup. I'll say this straight off the bat. I will be disappointed if England lose this. Norway look good. They have done well. I think Brazil should have beaten them. I think Brazil were the better team for 75 minutes of that match, missed countless opportunities to score, brought Neymar on when really they shouldn't have done, and that somewhat ruined their attacking approach. But realistically, Brazil should have beaten them. Obviously Holland, to stop Holland scoring is going to be a challenge, and there's talented players throughout this Norwegian side. But if you get to a World Cup quarterfinal and you're playing Norway, I think you're pretty pleased with yourselves. I think I think Switzerland are the clearly weakest side left.
Yeah.
I think Belgium and Norway are kind of on a par with one another, and England should feel pretty pleased that this is where they've ended up. If Norway win, fair play to them. I'm not saying it's impossible. I think if these teams play 10 times, England win 8, they draw 1, Norway wins 1. I think it's something like that. And I expect England to win. I expect England to win comfortably. I honestly do. I was super confident heading into Mexico. I'm even more confident heading into this one because it at least doesn't present the same challenges in terms of the environment and the atmosphere and all those types of things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, kind of going back to what you said before, should Norway think they can win? Yes, absolutely. They should think they can win. But are they the better team? No, they are not the better team. So
Well,
I think,
yeah, look, yes, Norway will believe they can win. If they lose 4-0 to England in the quarterfinals, should there be some dramatic post-mortem of the state of Norwegian football? Absolutely not. If England lose 4-0 to Norway, should there be a little bit of a reaction to that? Probably there should be. That should be a question marks about preparation and selection and all sorts
yeah,
of things if that's what happened. Now, if Norway just sneak a 1-0 win because they defend valiantly, their goalkeeper plays like he did against Brazil, and then Holland scores a goal in the 80th minute, I won't say I'll be accepting of that result, but I will see how it could come to be. England should win this. They really should. And as I said, I think England should benefit even in terms of handling Holland in that their entire team, I suppose Bellingham aside, plays against Holland week in, week out, including
yeah,
some of them playing on the same team as him. If anyone should have an idea of how to deal with it, they at least are players who are familiar with the challenge. Doesn't mean that you stop him easily, but I have at least it's not as much of unfamiliar territory for them.
yeah, yeah. I'm kind of in agreement on everything there. I think I think England will win. It is a little unfortunate because obviously, I'm supporting England and everything. This Norway team is just really easy to like. They're they're fun to like. They have that good underdog story going on. Holland, I think, if anyone's benefited the most from this World Cup, I think it's Holland. Just in the way kind of everyone is just like kind of quickly grown to like him, to root for him, to think how amazing he is when they see him make these phenomenal plays. But then also off the pitch, he's gained a ton of followers, and seeing like the weird stuff he does to prepare, or just his personality with like the videos he puts up of him eating a pastrami sandwich. Like I think Norway and Holland have done really well at this World Cup of kind of setting themselves up to be a team that you want to root for and you want to see do well. But so that's kind of unfortunate they have to go against England here, because I wouldn't mind if it were against any of the other big ones. I would enjoy
Oh,
kind
I
of rooting for them. Like I think it'd be great to
I
see
would
them go
support Norway
against
against and if they
Argentina.
knock England out, then I want Norway to win the World Cup.
Yeah.
Like, if that's what happens, and sure, if Norway had been playing in any other of these quarterfinals, then I would be hoping that they won. I agree with you. They come across as being relaxed, friendly. Their dealings when you see them with other supporters, their social media team has done an excellent job, because
Yeah.
I'm sure that most of these countries in their, like, I think a lot of these footballers have probably enjoyed the fact that they've been able to do more normal things in the US than they would be able to do almost anywhere else. And I'm sure you could clip up a lot of these countries and their interactions with fans, and them going to various places would look great. And the Norwegian social media team has done an excellent job of highlighting that. And they benefit from the fact that Holland enjoys his social media presence. Like, he
Yeah.
likes being a bit of a meme. He likes kind of playing around on camera. So, that helps.
Yeah. But yeah, I think England will win this. I just think
And a
it's
little
like
bit of
you just have to. I guess the tough part is like it's easy to say, like you just said as well. It's easier said than done of kind of neutralizing Holland. I think the hard part about that is you can neutralize them for 90% of the match, and then he just gets one chance. Like he's just so clinical
Eng-
at scoring. It's
England
tough.
don't have to. I mean, you don't have to think too hard about neutralizing Holland. You just have to go out and score goals.
I think
England have
that's it.
conceded in all of their knockout games so far. I'm sure Norway will score. This is not an England team that looks particularly sound defensively. And England just need to go into this saying, we're going to score 3 or 4 goals. And if we do that, Norway are not going to keep up with us. Like,
Yeah.
similar in that respect to, okay, it was their B side, but in terms of what we saw against France, that you can score goals against them. You can create
Yeah.
opportunities. Brazil should have scored 3 or 4 against them. I mean, there's
I
no,
think 3 wins it.
yeah, probably. But, like, Brazil should have been 2 goals up by the time Holland even scored his first. They should have then equalized, and then they still scored after it was 2-0. So, like, the chances there, I don't know what the Brazil XG was against Norway, but it must have been over 3, because, I mean, they had 2 penalties, so that alone is gonna put you pretty high. But, there were plenty of opportunities to score, and I think there will be for England in this one. And obviously the little subplot, I suppose, in this is a little bit of a battle for the golden boot, Holland versus Kane. If you're Holland, maybe an outside chance if he can score 2 that they could lose and still maybe win the golden boot. I think if you're Kane, he has to score in this one. He's behind. He has to score a goal in every remaining round, realistically, or have a hat trick. If he scores 3 this time around, then maybe things will be different. But
Yeah. Yeah, and then I guess for our listeners, right now it's Messi has 8, and then Mbappe and Holland have 7, and then Kane has 6.
yeah, and the tough thing, the the separator is number of assists, and that's going
Mbappe
to
has
favor.
2.
Yeah, Kane has 1.
Kane has 1, Messi has 1, Holland has none. He says, "Just give me the fucking ball and I'll score."
And he'll finish the
I
tournament
don't
with
need
none,
anyone
probably.
else.
Like, but yeah. So we'll see. Be interesting to see what happens. And then things wrap up Saturday night with Argentina against Switzerland in Kansas City. Argentina reigning world champions. Switzerland have not made the quarterfinal stages of a World Cup since 1954, so 72 years ago. Um, and there's also obviously the possibility if Argentina and France both make it through this, that they could have a rematch in the final of the 2022 final, which would be the first time since 1986, 1990 that we've had the same finals in back-to-back World Cups.
It's a lot of ifs.
One thing to note, actually, and this is a statistic that I don't think England fans, I think if I polled England fans or if I just polled people in general and asked them this, but I can't ask you this without the answer being obvious. But England,
Asking me
of the
anyway.
of the teams remaining in the quarterfinals now, England have made the quarterfinals more than any other nation still involved. I think that would surprise a lot of people with the involvement of France and Argentina and possibly even Spain, although Spain went through quite a bad period for a long time.
It's also, though, just such a depressing stat then when you think of how many times they've actually gone all the way from that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, hey, look, you say that, but I mean, Spain have only won it once,
But they haven't been to the
you know,
quarterfinals as many times.
not as many times now. And, I mean, Switzerland are the outlier there because you look last quarterfinal appearance for obviously 4 of these countries is 2022, Spain, Belgium's 2018, Spain's 2010, and then Switzerland 1954. Now, I think, like, I think Argentina will win this one easily, but it's tough. We've just seen them struggle against Cape Verde and go to extra time and
Yeah.
then struggle against Egypt and probably should have lost. So it's one
Back-to-back
of those things.
matches.
Yeah. Like, this is the thing I always say in terms of how, when kind of looking at English media and how we analyze, if England had just done what Argentina had done, we would already be in crisis mode. Like, how did you nearly lose to Cape Verde and should have lost to Egypt? There would be England fans saying, I hope we lose to Switzerland now because we don't even deserve to be where we are. That would be, I don't think there's a lot of Argentina supporters with that same mindset, but maybe there are. I don't know. I've not been listening to their press. But I mentioned it earlier on. I think they're full. They're the bad guys left now. They, the conspiracy theories are in full flow. And on top of it, too, I don't know if you saw the clip, but when they scored their second goal and their third goal against Egypt in the stadium, there was lots of incidents of Argentinian fans then throwing drinks, including beer, onto the Egyptian supporters, which,
Oh, boy.
for a Muslim nation, having beer tossed onto you doesn't go down super, super well. So the Egyptian supporters, I mean, there's been a lot of accusations of racism from both the players and then the fans and the staff coming out of that, but not a great look for Argentina. And yeah, I think they're the definite heels in the
And then
left in
also
the
the
tournament.
Egyptian coach did the X symbol.
He did the X symbol, which is supposed to indicate that he's heard something racist. Or homophobic. I think it can also be used for that. It's probably less likely, but you never know. And also his post game interview, he just like flat out
Oof.
said,
He went for
I
it.
mean, yeah, just
He went for it.
he did. Mourinho famously did the I can't say what I'm thinking because if I said what I'm thinking, I'm getting into trouble. The Egyptian manager saw that interview and said, I'm not going to be, I'm just going to say what I'm thinking. And just like, flat out accused FIFA of trying to guarantee, like, make this Argentina's World Cup, and that the game was stolen from them, and that the officiating was really terrible. So, yeah, I think most neutrals will be hoping that Argentina don't win the. I also just hope, they get knocked out before the final. I guess the most likely team to do that is England, the team left on their side. But I think it would even be a shame for the World Cup final to build up to the final to include now that element. And it would be impossible for it not to, because it would be like, well, did they get here on their own terms, or were they helped? And are we expecting more of the same in the final? It's, yeah.
Yeah, it's still crazy to think about too. We've been there's been a lot of World Cup matches already, and you still have 3 more to win it all. Like, it's still a lot of tournament left.
Yeah. And for a lot of these teams, even though they've won, in the case of France, won every match, but if they lose now, the World Cup will have been a failure. So it's interesting that you could have won 5 World Cup matches and lose your 6th, and it will be viewed as a tremendous failure. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Other than that, in sport, anything else to discuss?
No, not really.
Wimbledon wise, the kind of story at the moment is that Arthur Ferry, the British player who was a uh, wild card entry into Wimbledon, has just made the men's semifinal. You know, obviously a big deal. He's British, but he's kind of French. His father is a he comes from is a plucky underdog story where your family is worth 500 million pounds. You know, it's one of those classic Disney storyline of a young man who never had to worry about anything, got to dedicate his life to tennis. But again, he seems like a nice guy, but it is sort of, you know, when your dad owns a League football team, I'm not sure how much underdog status we should be giving you on anything, but still cool that he's managed to string this many wins together at Wimbledon.
Uh, Could this be the year of Zverev?
I think not. I think ultimately the final is Djokovic against Sinner. Um, in that, you know, like that, whoever wins that is winning Wimbledon. I think Sinner is going to have a couple of easy matches now. Djokovic fought really hard against Auger Aliassime last night, won in 5 sets. Maybe it should be slightly concerning for Roger Federer that Auger Aliassime's post-match comments were, "I don't know how Djokovic can now go and play Sinner in 2 days because I'm so tired. I just want to rest," because of how draining that 5-setter was. So when that's coming from a 25-year-old and Djokovic now has to prepare himself to play Sinner, I think it's cool to see him battling. I hope he keeps going for as long as he possibly can. But yeah, I think this has Sinner written all over it. Any non-sporting topics to discuss?
Ooh, no, not really. Um,
I have a
I was
small
on a
one.
plane, but I didn't watch it. I just actually watched live TV, which was nice.
I started watching because I kind of run out of TV shows. So I was
You
sort of
watched
looking for a
Lost.
TV
You
show.
started it.
No. I did start watching a TV show that you have on the podcast spoken positively about previously.
Hmm.
I started watching For All Mankind.
Oh, first season's great.
Is it?
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think the first 2 seasons are good, and then after that, it like really tails off.
I don't know. I struggle a bit. Like conceptually, I liked Men in the High Castle. So it's sort of same idea of let's take a historical thing and twist it. Cool. I don't know if in addition to that it needed, and this isn't me being sexist or misogynistic, but the compounding that by having it focus on the female astronaut side of things, I also got thrown off because I was like, what feels sort of unrealistic about this show from episode 1, I'm not sure in 1969 there were women tending bar in Texas. Like this doesn't feel it didn't feel like you walked into your local dive bar and it was a 25-year-old girl just managing the bar by herself. That feels like a very modern thing. So I had to look it up. Like it literally bothered me so much. Wasn't even legal in Texas until 1971. So right
What
off the
was it? Wait,
bat,
what wasn't legal? A
women to
woman
work behind a
bartender?
bar. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, so it was
That's
legal
insane.
during World War II because obviously all the men went away, so it became quite popular. That was basically in the US. I read a whole article about it. In the US, women started to become bartenders quite a bit during World War II because no one was there, and in a lot of states that continued post-war because they had jobs and people weren't gonna get rid of them. Texas went back to, "This is not allowed. Women are too innocent and sweet to be behind the bar," and it wasn't until 1971 that they reintroduced women
But
bartenders. So
but there's one flaw in this argument, Eddie, is that
this is
this
a
is an
fictional
alternate
universe.
universe.
Yes, I know. They can do this
In
for
this
all things.
alternate universe, women were encouraged to work behind the bar
Yes,
after World War
women
II.
bars are exclusively tended by women in this. Because in fairness, we've only seen one bar so far, so I can't say that they're wrong. But yeah, I don't know. Like the
I
acting,
also
I'm
really
not
like
sure.
Space though too.
I like space too, but that
No,
doesn't.
you don't. Me and Olivier are way bigger space fans than you.
You say
If
this,
anything, you're anti-space.
I'm about to go to Houston and go to the Space Center as part of my trip, so I'll be
And you
super
know what you're gonna
spaced
do?
up.
You're gonna be bored because you don't like space.
But yeah, some of the acting is a little questionable.
I like the God, I can't think of his name now. Not
The Swedish
Klingman.
guy,
Is it Klingman? No. Yeah, Kinnaman. Joel Kinnaman.
the kind of the main male actor in season 1.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
I think a little of his acting's a little questionable. He seems to struggle. He's just, like, so angry a lot of the times. There's the one great scene where he has to call. I encourage you to go back and rewatch it. I'll send you the clip in all likelihood. He has to call up the father of the female astronaut who died, and then his wife comes in to kinda console him, but he's just sort of he's pulled the phone out of the wall and stuff, and he's just really angry. And then at that one moment, she's like he's just angry, he can't contain his emotions, and then he goes and picks up a chair. Now, listeners are gonna think that he's picking up a chair as if he's about to smash it. He literally picks up a chair as if you were just gonna go, "Hey, we need another chair in the other room," and you just went to pick up a chair and went to walk there, but he just, like, angrily picks it up, and she's like, "No, no, 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 no." It makes no sense as a sequence. Then she kinda calms him down. It's dark outside. It's dark outside. She goes she says to him, she kinda calms him down, and she goes, "Just go mow the lawn." So he just wanders out. He
I
just
think
wa
I remember that. It
and then
was the one in
literally
the
10
dark,
seconds
right?
later, you just hear like, just outside. It's such an insane combination of things happening that I just sometimes when I watch something, I think,
Hey, it's hot
how
in
did the
Texas in the summer. You gotta mow the lawn when the sun goes down.
Yeah, this guy just relentlessly gets angry, mows the lawn, but it just made me laugh so much. It made me laugh so much that watching it in real time, I had to go back and rewatch it to laugh at it more. That's how much I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I had stopped watching after uh, it's not really a spoiler, but they kind of go kind of like they jump every season, they jump into the future, and then it got to a point where I think I got to where, like, they're now in the future, like, they're, like, past our present day, and then it was becoming, like, a little too much, and I was like, "Alright, I'm good. I've had enough of this." Like, it was cool, it was fun, I liked the idea of, like, all the what ifs, and, like, how things would have been different, but then it was like, now we're just going way too crazy.
Yeah.
It's still
No,
going.
and
Like,
yeah,
I
yeah,
give
well
Apple credit, man, they just let shit go, Apple. They're like, "We wanna do another one? Fuck it, go ahead.
I
Ted Lasso,
started
you wanna make a spinoff? Fuck it, go ahead."
well, that's the reason, so the spinoff, because there's the spinoff Star City, which is
Which is
the
supposed to be
same, but
really
from
good.
the Russian perspective, and so that's the thing
Chris
that made me
Ryan
because
loves it.
I saw that that existed, and I thought, well, before watching that, I should probably
Yes.
watch For All Mankind. I
I was
might
actually gonna
shift
go watch Star City soon as well.
I might just shift over to Star City pretty soon.
Supposedly it's good. The problem with For All Mankind, and, like, we've discussed this, and I think we kind of go back and forth a little on this. Um, for me, there are some shows that are just a little they're just too long. Like, kinda like From is kind of what we discussed, where it's like, you can watch in a whole episode and kind of almost nothing happens, and it can be condensed into, like, 10 minutes. For All Mankind kind of suffers from that, where it's like, things are kind of drawn out a little too much. It's like, "Well, we wanna develop the characters and this and that," and I get it, and that's fine, but at a point, it's just like, "Okay,
Well
let's come on, just give me the summary here. What happens? Like,
well,
let's
2
go a little
things
quicker."
happen. I do agree with you, the episodes feel long, and I definitely
They're
find
long.
myself, like, checking how much is left during it, which is never a good sign. But 2 things, I agree with you that there's lots of episodes where nothing kinda happens, but then we just skip ahead in major
Yeah,
plots of like, "Oh, no, the female astronauts now are
they're
really
in.
well trained."
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
and it's like, "Well, hold on a second, we've seen an episode and a half. One of them got lost in a desert and her ankle is just good to go, and now she's an astronaut." Like, I thought if you failed that, you were done, but she definitely failed it, but they both got through. There's just stuff, there's lots of it.
Yeah.
It also suffers a little bit to me from it having a lot of actors in it who are, to steal the, rewatchables term, there's a lot of that guys in it, and there's maybe too many that guys, so you do spend your time being like, "Oh, I haven't seen him since The Wire. I haven't seen this person since that," and that kinda distracts you from the TV show because you're constantly sort of trying to figure out where you've seen this person, and you're better off having
Yes.
more unknowns or more stars, and you're like, that is Chris Pratt. I know who it is. I will just accept I'm watching it now, versus constantly being like, who is that guy? I know I've seen him in something. Like,
Yeah, no, that is definitely a show that kind of has a lot of that because, um, yeah, I agree with you because the other woman who plays the woman who plays I think the main female astronaut. I haven't watched the show now in like 5 years. Um, she's to me that person because I kind of see her pop up in random stuff. Like she was in Ted Lasso
really?
and like yeah.
Huh. But yeah, it's
For a few
fine.
episodes, so like only a few episodes. Don't you
Yeah.
remember at the end when she does when what's her face goes to work at the company and she has like that weird CEO? She's the
Oh,
CEO,
yeah.
if you remember.
Really?
Yeah. I'm almost positive. That's who she is.
But yeah, no, it's okay. I think it might be
It's fine. You're not a space guy. We get it. You're not a sci-fi space guy.
to me, it's that, like, The Man in the High Castle was super smart. Like, they'd really this one feels like the pitch was, "Let's do The Man in the High Castle, but for the space race." And people went, "That sounds great. I love that show. That's a good idea." And then the people pitching it were like, "Fuck, now we need to write the episodes." That like, that's sort of how I feel about this show. And then they have this weird thing where I don't know how much the weird balance between how many historical figures are in it, but how true to themselves they are, or then when they're not, and, like,
Yeah.
aligning the timeline of, wait, Vietnam's still going on, so has Vietnam progressed as it did in real life? We don't really know. There's just lots of things that confuse me slightly, I guess.
I feel like you're pretty deep into this show. How many episodes have you watched?
3?
Really? All that happened in the first 3 episodes? See, that's what I mean. That's how long these episodes are. Because like, I'm trying to think
Yeah, I
of
mean, the first 3 episodes, they obviously lose the space race.
yeah.
They like, episode 2, they introduce the female astronauts. They're pulling out of Vietnam in, like, episode 3, and that's when they shut down the female astronauts, and then they make them female astronauts. I feel like that's the 3 episodes I've watched so far.
You've got so much to go. I'm just thinking now in my head of like kind of where I left off and like how advanced it was. You've
And
got a
they're
lot.
about to
You've got a lot.
and again, this is the other thing I struggle with too, is it's like, not only because a TV show of just the US lost the space race, that would be so much in my wheelhouse of, "Oh, wow, I can be into the kind of the geopolitical outcomes of that." But the fact that now it's also like, "But we've also found water on the moon." So, like, it's not only do I have to agree, oh, no, it's not just the only difference here isn't just what would have happened if Russia's found the space race. It's also, and what would happen if the moon was a completely different object? Like, what if everything forget everything you know about the moon, and you'll be okay in this TV show.
Oh, just
They're
wait till
they're
Joel
like
Kinnaman is still an astronaut at age like 65. You're gonna love that season.
they're like launching rockets every 3 weeks, it feels like. Like, the
Yeah.
missions are just going constantly. It's insane, the progress. There was the one scene too where the Russian cosmonaut revealed that she was a woman, and she's, like, looking into the camera and flips up her little visor. I was like, "Could they do that with their visors?" Like, when I don't have
In
Neil
this universe,
Armstrong,
yes.
and also it's in really clear definition, and everything's live on TV at all times. Like, and
Yeah.
they never stop the broadcast. I know we're spoiling a bit of this TV show, but for example, when the Apollo mission lands, but they think that they've died and they're not there, and then they find, like, 14 hours later, they speak and say they're okay. There's people in the bar and the TV news broadcast, like, they hear the audio of them speaking. So is that just a 14-hour news broadcast of them being like, "We haven't heard them from them in a while, but we're gonna keep the feed going."
It's a
And
heavy
like,
drinking day.
yeah, and everyone stayed locked in. Maybe that's like you. Maybe in 1969, it wasn't, "Hey, you gotta go for Olympic opening ceremonies, that's when the women come in." It's like, "No, you gotta go for the
Oh,
live."
the
Women
live
love live broadcasts of Apollo missions.
yep. Takeoff and landing. Love it.
Yeah, it's great. But maybe it's okay. I don't know. It's to me, it's no. This is gonna hurt you. I think is you're gonna disagree strongly with this. It's not better than From in terms
Oh,
of like
come
how I have to.
on. It's so much
It's
better.
they're too stupid. Put them on in the background shows. The only challenge is that with For All Mankind, I have to pay more attention, so it's more annoying. Because at least with From, I can just be like oblivious to most of the details.
No, it wasn't. It's definitely not one of my like to also steal the ringer, like a prestige show for me. Like I would watch that a lot on like the elliptical or something like that, like in a time killing scenario situation, like during lunch, throw it on or whatever. Like it wasn't my like, oh my God, everyone shut the fuck up. Like leave me alone. I've got to watch the new episode of For All Mankind. It's kind of it's just decent mid-level television.
Yeah,
Anything else?
I don't think so.
Speaking of
It's
Apple,
pretty.
Silo came back. I watched like the first 10 minutes of that and I had to stop. I was doing other stuff and I couldn't focus, so I had
I
to
thought you
save
just
that
so
one.
overwhelmed. It was too good. You
Yeah,
c 10
it was
minutes
too
is
good.
enough.
There's so much going on, I couldn't focus.
Yeah, no, we'll see. But, other than that, nothing. I haven't had any other new TV shows.
All right. Oh, actually, I think you'll be happy. There's been talk, so we're driving to LA in about 3 or 4 hours, which is I think a 5 or 6-hour trip from Phoenix. They built the first Buc-ee's in Arizona, and you'll be happy to know that we've kind of put it in our plan that on the starting trip, as we start our journey, we'll go right through and we're gonna stop at Buc-ee's. I know you're a big fan of how people go crazy over a gas station, so
You
I'll
say,
keep you informed of how great Buc-ee's is.
yeah, look, I'm going to Texas in a week. I'm gonna go to a
There you
Buc-ee's
go.
in
You're
Texas.
gonna go to a
So I
Buc-ee's, and you're
will
gonna
go
come
to I
back
will
with
go
the
to a
Buc-ee's clothes.
I will not buy the clothes. I will go to Buc-ee's because I do wanna kind of and I think experiencing in Texas different because it's the sort of heartbed of it. The real question is because you and I have done that drive together, and we stopped for the world's best beef jerky, which gets
Oh,
advertised every 30 miles for about
yep.
600 miles.
We'll
Will he
probably
be
stop.
stopping? We gotta
Probably.
stop.
Probably. I mean, we're in no rush. We don't play till tomorrow afternoon, I don't think. So, like, we're not in a real rush to have to get there at a certain time tonight. So we'll
Stop for
we'll
the
take
beef
our
jerky.
time.
You can stop at that weird candy store that was still selling candy that's definitely illegal now by, like, those children candy
Oh,
cigarettes and
the
stuff.
candy cigarettes?
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll make some stops. All right. Well, with that, I guess we'll call it a day.
sounds good.
All right. Talk to you later. Cheerio.